Okay. You ready to do some game dev? I'm ready to do some game dev. Do be like. I might have repair people coming over. They said they would be here yesterday. They weren't here yesterday. So I don't know when to expect them. But when they do show up, I'll have to BRB. So apologies in advance if the stream is interrupted by anything of that nature. Let me pull up the chats. Okay. Check it. Look at where we're at. Halfling, dwarf, orc. There's shorter versions of the orcs, and there's also versions of the humans with ears that are elves that are a little bit lighter skinned. Well, you know what the title of the stream is? Doors in Dungeon, right? So for a moment, let's disable entity creation. Now we're back to an empty room, right? Oh, and Gracie's awake. Hi. Hi. You want to say hi? Can you say hi to everyone in this room? This is Gracie. She's 15 this year. She's a handful, but she is my baby girl. And there's a fly on the microphone. She's in the middle of getting a haircut that's taken about 3 days so far. And the only reason it's taken so long is because the parts of her that are hardest to get are all under here. And she's really finicky. In particular, her legs are the hardest areas to get. But we have to do it because whenever we go outside, when her hair is this long, I mean, she's lost a lot over the last couple days, but when it's that long in general, she starts to pick up stuff up off the ground with her hair. It gets caught in her hair. It starts to create dreadlocks. It gets in my bed and in my couch, and I don't know if she prefers long hair or short hair, because what remnants of poodle curls have straightened out over time. She is technically half poodle, but what's up, Dulce? How's it going? I was just showing off. We're about to get rolling doing some stuff until Gracie popped her head up. So, in the process of showing y'all, here, I can actually load up Complex 7. So here's how that works. Okay, so no doors here yet, but check this out. Oh shit, we got doors. And watch this. So I can't walk through it, but when I hit spacebar facing it, the door opens. And when I turn to face the door and it's open, I can close it. I was very happy to get this implemented. This is a huge step forward. In 2013, when I was first working on this original idea, not with these graphics, of course, and not on the computer, it was actually an iOS game. I still have the code up for it on my GitHub, but that was back in 2013, and I got doors working in there also. Something else that I haven't fully shown off yet either is pathfinding. I did show a little bit of it off last time, but look at that. Now this is going to be the cool part. So we got 3 orcs, an elf, and a dwarf. This orc is going to open. This orc is going to open. They're actually able to open doors now. Look at that. Now, of course, because they're all nicely lined up here, there we go. There's another randomly generated little micro test area here. And actually each of these rooms and hallways I'm procedurally generating. And the whole idea is that I'm scripting out algorithms to generate different templates for dungeons, because, like, as an example, the size of each room that I'm creating is a variable width and height, and I make an effort to properly, like, for instance, we create this first room, and then we have to keep track of the size of this room in order to know how to properly place where a hallway might go on the right side. So then the Y position of the hallway is randomly generated. The width, I believe I'm hard coding in, but the width could also be adjusted to be variable. The second room is slightly smaller than the first one, but it has the same width. The third one, same situation. Each one of these is being randomly generated. So every time I run it, we're going to get a different, setup here. Oh, that's interesting. They're stuck somehow. They're getting stuck. Interesting. That means that there's a bug in the A-star algorithm. That's real curious. So one of the things I mentioned that I wanted to implement last time, I may not do it right now, but I was thinking about having, like, while we're in debug mode, the ability to actually draw out an entity's path, and then we could actually observe where it thinks it's supposed to go. But realistically, what's supposed to happen is a search is performed recursively, and then a path gets returned as a list of locations. And then the entity is supposed to move into the first location in that path, essentially. And it's actually the second to last item in the list, because the last item in the list ends up being the entity's current location. And then the immediate second to last position is the next tile that they should move into. I started working on keys. I realized that the asset pack that I acquired actually doesn't have any graphics for keys across all of the different. Wow, this is the first time I've ever seen any dropped frames over here. Now that's real interesting. Okay, it kicked back up, but still. I've had very few dropped frames over the last few streams at this location. So, it's kind of a curious note. But anyway, I noticed that the asset pack that I acquired does not have any keys. So I drew a little key. Right here. And I don't have any functional implementation for keys yet. I started stubbing out its entity object type, but we have not actually begun to place keys or wire them into doors yet, because I'm still deciding on whether or not do I want individual keys to only unlock specific doors, or do I want them to operate as like classes where arbitrary keys can unlock arbitrary doors, for instance. You know, in which case we might have different levels of keys. Whereas it's possible to have both systems, but these are decisions that I actually have to make. Not to mention, as entities are moving, we have to take into account the fact that there might be a door along their path. They also have to take into account whether or not they need to open a door. Gracie's talking again. Hey. Hey. Do you want me to sit with you? Do you want me to sit with you? Update my setup here. There's Miss Grace face. We'll see how well this is going to work. I have a great place for my coffee. Just have to be very mindful. I am trying to get some momentum over here, but on a day-to-day basis, it's very difficult. As you can see, she just popped up when I started talking. She don't like me talking, not unless I'm talking all quiet and stuff. unless I'm petting her while I'm talking. She also don't like the loud keyboard. I've thought about getting a new keyboard as a result. I really like typing on this one, but I am trying to make sure that she's comfortable throughout the whole day, as it is very hard for me to get anything done when she is upset or complaining or whining about something. I've been trying to be very not patient, but I mean definitely patient, but attentive to whether or not she's actually in pain. I don't think she is. She's generally pretty easy to satisfy, so long as all of her basic needs are met. We could always get some more outdoors time, but as it is, I do my best with her. She has to be carried in and out because she's not able to get in and outdoors on her own, because she's blind. And while she is mobile, she has limited mobility. It's not like she knows exactly where the door outside is, for instance. See, they got stuck. That's real curious what's going on there. Okay, see, he had no problem. He had no problem either. He had no problem. Uh-oh. The goblin's having trouble. Oh, I know what's going on here. I know exactly. I forgot to set the goblins to be created with the A-star algorithm. Probably the same thing with the halflings, yeah. There we go. we go. So, this probably won't be a long stream today. However, I do want to talk about what I've implemented to enable some of these new things that I'm doing here. She seems like she's chilling out. A lot of times she just wants me next to her. Which is why I wish I had a slightly better setup with my desk. It would be cool to be able to have the full desk set up at the couch. First of all, let's take a look at this function. This is new. There's a lot of new stuff in this one. First, I have created a range type. Very simple, keeps a min and max. And we have a simple function that allows us to get a random and a range. This was the first step. And in general, dungeon creation should start at the center of the whole dungeon map. So remember, we're working with like a 512 by 512 area, which we can always tweak this if we need to. But generally speaking, this allows for pretty fucking big maps, right? So we start with the center. We get a width and a height. And then we adjust our starting point from that width and height. And that's our official start XY. So this is where we create our first room. And room creation is now tied to two things. First, there's the actual dungeon, like there's the tiles, right? There's an actual tile representation for every location in a dungeon map. But in addition to that, now we have a metadata object called room info. One thing that you didn't notice, because I haven't pointed it out yet, is down here in the bottom, we've got this thing that says room 1. Now it says hallway 1. Ooh. So there's actually a string tied to this location. And now I'm in room 2. So this room also has a metadata name tied to a particular XY location, which would be this tile, as well as a width and a height for that room. And that gets generated here in add room info. So given an XY width and height, we create a new room data. Oh, we've got some viewers now. Fuck yeah. So add room info adds a room data object, and room data, like I said, is literally just an XY width, height, and a string representing the name of the room. So the whole idea is that every time you create a little block area or something like this, you're going to want to add a room info. So I wrapped both of these into a single function called add room. And so whenever you want to create a new room, you just call this function and make sure to pass in a unique string. Now, one of the more interesting things that's directly tied to this now is our ability to associate these rooms with locations. So as an example of this, we given a dungeon floors list of rooms, we can actually get a sublist of those rooms by asking for rooms that start with a particular prefix. So we might want to add an additional name to the string if we wanted to, like, for instance, have a more unique name than just room 1 or hallway 1. I'm just thinking out loud about this now. So as an example of this, maybe you want to create a room that's called barracks, but internally you want to refer to this as something like monster room 5. So in this situation, we would need a second string on the room data object. So for instance, over here we have a room name. We might also create a display name. That way we have two different strings, and we can have one specifically as the string to show up for, like, the player whenever they're interacting with something that requires to display the name, or rather, and we also have this internal name representation. So what this does is, over in with logic, now we can get rooms with prefix, and this will actually return a list of rooms that start with a particular string in its room name. So what do we do with this? So whenever I create a room, and I decided later we should definitely also name hallways, because those are technically rooms, and I realized that when I'm placing doors, I might want to, for instance, actually display, or rather actually randomly select a position in a hallway for a door to go. The reason I started doing it this way is during creation preps, I want to like find a way to ensure that there's only one door placed per hallway. So given a room info object or a room data object, we can actually get back a list of tiles. Or rather, we get back a list of locations, which are XYs, XYZs actually. So we can get random empty non-wall location in area. So given an XY width and height, we take a little snapshot of the dungeon. I'm gonna ban you because I've read that chat before, Laura. I am now convinced that that is an automatic reply bot because I have seen someone you've got one message. Your account was created less than 2 weeks ago, and you started following 32 seconds ago. So I'm going to ban you because you're a bot. Get fucked. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, get random empty non-wall location in area. So this, for instance, we can get empty non-wall locations in area, right? And this will come back with a, another list of locations. So we first have to count how many of those spaces are before we can create that list. I've thought about ways to try and batch this up and make it more efficient, but in the end, pre-optimization is equal to death, and for all of the pre-optimization I've already done, I want to try and avoid that in the future going forward. So we're only going to be seeking to optimize when we encounter bottlenecks during implementation, and I haven't really run into any yet, but I anticipate that as the scale of dungeons grows, as we have more entities that we're actually working with, things might start to slow down over time. And so we'll examine things at that point, but so far everything's working pretty good. So this actually first counts the empty non-walls, and then we actually go to create a new list of locations. We grab each tile that follows the same pattern, and then instead of counting it, we actually take that location and put it into our list. If the number of items ends up exceeding our initial count, then we break out of the loop. We assert that the count is equal to what we looped over just now, and then we assign the external count to the count that we initially created, and then we return that list of locations. So with that new list of locations, we pick a random location and we just free the list. And we assert that that location is inside the bounds of the dungeon, and then we return that location. So now that we have a random location, we can actually create a door or any other entity. So by being able to reference certain areas of the dungeon by name or prefix, this gives me a lot more flexibility over random entity placement, as well as door placement, and pretty soon item placement as well. And this is going to be very important for properly scaling, because it's not always going to be a hard-coded number of entities in a room. One of the things that I've been considering is how I want the difficulty of the game to progress as you get further and further into the dungeon. Obviously, in the very beginning, things should be easy and get progressively harder, unless there's a hard mode somehow, in which case I would want to make things very difficult out the gate. So there might be multiple modes, there might be a lot of different ways that I can seek to generate the individual floors themselves. The kinds of parameters that I want to pass in at the top level when I say create floor 1 or create floor 2. The way that I think about these things is that they should be highly tunable. So a lot of these initial experiments, I'm working out patterns for how I want the overarching system to actually handle things. And the first way that you have to do this is manually, because you have to examine what the algorithm should be, right? So part of this initial first test was to create 3 rooms, and each one joined by a hallway, and to randomly place the doors in those hallways, and then to place a certain number of entities in one of those rooms. And so you can imagine that in a more fully fleshed out example, we might have 1 entity per room, for instance, or you might have 1 to 2 entities per room, or you might have, like, because in the very beginning here, I'm equipping you with a sword and a shield by default. But in the final version of the game, you know, you'll probably end up having the sword separate from the player, as well as the shield to start with. And those might appear in a certain location relative to where you're starting at. And I might engineer it so that the very, very first thing you have to do in order to survive is either grab that sword or shield, and I might place it in such a way that if you don't move exactly perfectly, there's going to be an enemy that's placed in such a way that if if the enemy is able to take advantage of you not acting perfectly, then you get killed before you can kill them. So while I'm not trying to make the game totally easy, I'm also not trying to hand everything to the player, but I'm also not trying to make it impossible either. So, like, as an upgrade to, like, for instance, how things work here, because all the enemies are going to be coming at me in a line, and they're not smart enough yet to know that there's an open tile up here and down here. And if the enemy is 2 spaces away from the player, then there needs to be some sort of heuristic where if we can't move into the immediate next position in their path, that we take a look at whether or not we can move into a space relative to that next position. Because if we can, then they'd be able to attack as well as the dwarf. But as it is, they are stupid. I'm getting really unlucky with these blocks. Now, see, in this case, the player moved down right, and this orc was already in this position, so it had a heuristic built into it that was able to see the players right here, so I should try to attack him instead of moving into this next lot, right? Because every time the player moves, the target for all of these other entities also moves. So every turn, they update their path. But if they get to a point where they can't move, because there's another entity in the way, we need to introduce some sort of random move or some sort of heuristic that allows them to actually move into a random other position or something that kind of shuffles them up a bit. It's been a part of me that's also been thinking about the feel of the game in general. I think it might feel slightly better at this speed. I also think in the future too, the next iteration on this game, not this version because I'm going to take this one to completion, but in the future, the next game I do after this one may not be turn-based. I might actually end up doing something real time for the next game after this. Just thinking in terms of all the implementation details I have to deal with it being a turn-based game. You gotta find an easier way to do things. In code, of course. Oh, I have to fix the human one also. And also create a sword for them as well. So like these 3 lines here, straight up create a new sword and add it to the inventory. And actually, one really big detail that I'm thinking about. So here's a good example situation that I'm thinking about. Let's say you kill an orc, right? Let's say you took some damage before you killed this orc. Because currently I've disabled HP increasing when you wait. And I think this is a good design decision because otherwise the game might be too easy. However, this also introduces a problem in terms of what happens when you kill an enemy? What do they drop? Should orcs and everybody that you kill drop something random? And if so, should that random thing be a part of their inventory before you kill them, therefore giving them an opportunity to use said item before they actually drop it? Like such as an example as a potion. So that's one issue, right? And another issue is that let's say we wanted to create an item and have it placed on the dungeon floor after we've initialized the game and it's running. You know, after we've loaded liblogic and libdraw. So like if we wanted drops to occur and the item that they're dropping isn't in their inventory, we would have to create it when the enemy's killed. So we would have to create the sprite group. So I mean, not only would we have to create the entity on enemy death and place it, but also we would have to detect that a new item or a new entity has been created in the dungeon, and then also load its sprite group so as you can see, for drops, we have a very important design decision to consider. Do we want random potions to just appear out of nowhere when you kill an enemy? Or any other item for that matter? Because, like, in Diablo, it's not like every enemy you kill drops something. Same thing in Path of Exile. It's not like everything you kill drops something. So if it's the case that, like, for instance, an orc can be equipped with a sword and a shield, but when you kill them, their whole inventory doesn't drop, then killing an enemy would have to have a chance to drop one or more item or zero or more items. And for instance, if we've equipped an orc with something, or you know, like, there could be a chance that they drop something they have on them, right? So this creates a couple different issues. Like, we would effectively have no ability to loot a body, and every entity has a potential inventory on it. Further, if there's multiple items on a tile, then we're going to have to have a system built that enables the player to select which item they want to pick up. Similar to how the inventory works now. A little menu can pop up listing off the items and showing a little icon for their display, maybe some more info about them. But we would have to have that kind of system built. Because at present, I think it'll just, like, if you attempt to pick up the first item, or if you attempt to pick up an item that's you know, if you have like multiple items on a tile and you go to pick up an item, it's just going to pick up the first item. So you'd have to pick up both items if, like, say there's an item beneath the item that you want to pick up. So in order to facilitate that, we would absolutely need a little menu screen that allows you to select which item you want to pick up. In addition to that, we also need the ability to drop items out of our inventory in case we need to do inventory management. So before I do all of that, I'm going to end up doing some more demos because I'm trying to create some footage for this Raylib 2025 thing that's going to be going on, and want to be able to get what I've got into that for showcase. So I don't really have a lot of velocity going right now. I think now's a good time for me to checkpoint. What I'm thinking of doing going forward is actually making like developer like vlog entries. I think that'd be a bit more watchable. It'd give me a better opportunity to kind of curate the work that I've done, you know, over a period, and you know, people may not, you know, feel like they got to hang around so long. So look forward to that developer vlog series going forward. I want to thank everyone for showing up today. Thank you, Dulce. You've been a very regular viewer, and I do appreciate that. At the same time, too, also consider reaching out for any sort of programming services that you might need. I am totally on the market. I've got plenty of time for consulting and actually implementing solutions, so y'all take it easy. Until next time.